In this vast and mysterious world, there are places so remote, so disconnected from civilization, that they seem to hold strange secrets of their own. These places, far away from the hustle and bustle of daily life, seem to be the epicenter of bizarre, inexplicable glitches, where time itself might slow down or perhaps even stop. In the remote corners of the world, the laws of physics, technology, and reality as we know it can break down in peculiar ways, leaving behind eerie experiences that challenge our understanding of time and space. Let's dive into 10 such glitches that have been reported in these distant, forgotten places. 1. The vanishing hour. The mysterious time loss in the Russian Taiga, deep in the heart of Siberia, where the cold winds howl across endless forests and the vast wilderness stretches as far as the eye can see. There lies an eerie and unexplained phenomenon. The Russian Taiga, a sprawling and remote expanse of dense forests, has long been the subject of fascination and fear for those who venture into its depths. Surrounded by myths, folklore, and secrets older than any written history, the Taiga holds a power that has confounded travelers for centuries. But one particular mystery, a strange and terrifying glitch in the very fabric of time, has captured the attention of adventurers, scientists, and curious souls from around the world. In 2012, a group of seasoned hikers, led by an experienced guide, set out to traverse a remote section of the Taiga far from civilization. Their mission was simple: to document the unique flora and fauna of the region, but they were unaware that they were about to stumble upon something far beyond the natural world. The journey began like any other, with the dense trees towering over them and the sounds of nature echoing through the air. But soon, something began to feel different. There was an eerie silence, a stillness in the air that didn't quite match the wilderness surrounding them. The forest felt almost out of sync. After several hours of trekking, the group decided to take a brief break. They stopped by a stream to rest and rehydrate, chatting and laughing, enjoying the serenity of the moment. The sun filtered through the trees in narrow beams, casting long, strange shadows on the forest floor. It was just a short respite, no more than 20 minutes. But when they packed up to continue their journey, things took an unexpected turn. As they resumed their hike, the group's guide glanced at his watch. To his shock, the hands on the clock had moved in an entirely unfamiliar way, not by minutes, but hours. He quickly checked his watch again, thinking it had malfunctioned, but it read the same time, confirming that something was wrong. The hikers, now uneasy, pulled out their own devices, digital watches, GPS trackers, and even their phones. All showed the same thing: they were 3 hours behind their expected schedule. Yet they had not walked for any additional time. They had only rested for a mere 20 minutes. At first, they shrugged it off as a malfunction or a simple mistake, but as they continued their trek, things only grew more perplexing. The landscape seemed oddly unchanged, as though time itself had stood still. The further they ventured, the more unsettling it became. The once familiar trees seemed different, subtly out of place. The sky above them felt strangely still, and the atmosphere around them was thick with an unnatural heaviness. There was no logical explanation for the sudden loss of time. They checked their GPS devices, hoping for some sense of clarity, but each one offered the same disconcerting conclusion. The time had jumped, and it seemed as though they had lost 3 full hours in the blink of an eye. Their route, which had once been calculated down to the minute, was now completely out of sync. The distance they had covered didn't match the time their devices indicated. Their watches, once reliable, now appeared frozen in an eerie loop, showing times they couldn't recognize. The group began to panic, but their guide, a seasoned veteran of the wilderness, remained calm, trying to reassure them that it was just some fluke, perhaps a temporary glitch. But as the day wore on, they couldn't shake the feeling that something was very wrong. The forest, which had once felt like a natural paradise, now seemed like a labyrinth with no way out. The trees loomed taller and closer, and the shadows grew longer, stretching unnaturally into the forest. As night began to fall, the hikers were faced with a chilling thought. Not only had they lost time, but they had also lost the sense of their own reality. The usual cycle of time, the certainty of when day would turn into night, seemed fractured. The entire day felt as if it had folded in on itself. It was as though they were stuck in a moment, unable to break free from the unseen force that had taken hold of them. Theories began to emerge among the group. Was there something in the Taiga, some magnetic anomaly, that was affecting their timepieces? Could it be the presence of an ancient energy field, forgotten by civilization, that manipulated time? Some suggested that the forest itself, in all its mysterious grandeur, was living by a different rhythm, one that didn't align with the rest of the world. Perhaps the trees were older than time itself and existed in a different cycle altogether, one that couldn't be understood by human minds. But despite their best efforts to reason with the phenomenon, the group couldn't explain the glitch. They continued on, their journey plagued by the unsettling feeling that they were walking through a place untouched by time. With every step, they found themselves questioning what was real and what had been altered by the invisible hand of the forest. By the time they finally returned to their base camp, the group was exhausted and bewildered. The clocks, once synchronized, now seemed hopelessly out of place. The time had resumed its normal rhythm, but the hikers knew they had experienced something inexplicable. Hours had passed that shouldn't have. Time had vanished, slipping away like a ghost in the dense taiga, and nothing they could do would bring it back. To this day, the phenomenon remains unexplained. Some say it was a mere coincidence, a glitch in the electronic devices. Others believe the taiga holds ancient secrets, hidden beneath the shadowed trees, where time behaves in ways the human mind cannot comprehend. Whatever the truth may be, the hikers left with the knowledge that in the wild heart of Siberia, there are places where time itself can vanish, where hours slip away unnoticed, leaving only the eerie silence of an unbroken, unfathomable wilderness. 2. The Antarctic Signal Echo. The day radio waves forgot to reach. Far from the bustling cities of the world on the frozen, desolate plains of Antarctica, there lies a place so inhospitable, so far removed from civilization, that it feels like the edge of the earth. The South Pole, a stark land of ice and snow, is home to scientific research stations where only the bravest men and women go to study the planet's most extreme conditions. Here, in the endless white expanse, the harsh winds bite, and the cold is so bitter that even time itself seems to slow down. But in 2007, an event took place at one such research station that defied all logic, a strange and inexplicable glitch in the fabric of time and space. The research station, nestled deep within the Antarctic wilderness, was an isolated outpost, a tiny beacon of human presence in an otherwise uninhabitable region. The station was equipped with state-of-the-art communication technology, vital for maintaining contact with the outside world and ensuring the safety and coordination of scientific expeditions. The researchers relied heavily on these systems, as they were the only link to the rest of humanity, who, in many ways, seemed far removed from their icy existence. On that particular day, everything seemed normal. The temperature was well below freezing, as usual, but there was nothing out of the ordinary to signal that something strange was about to unfold. The researchers were engaged in their daily tasks, studying climate data, measuring ice cores, and collecting atmospheric samples. They were also in the midst of an important communication with their headquarters in Europe, providing updates on their latest findings. As the clock ticked steadily forward, everything was running like clockwork until the signal delay occurred. The communications team, busy sending their routine updates through the station's radio equipment, suddenly noticed something unusual. The radio signals they were transmitting appeared to be delayed. At first, they thought it was just a minor glitch, something they could easily troubleshoot. But when the delay stretched beyond the usual few seconds, lasting a full 2 hours, it quickly became apparent that something far more bizarre was at play. The engineers scrambled to investigate the issue. They tested the equipment, checked the alignment of the satellite dishes, and even ran diagnostic tests on the radios and transmitters. Everything was functioning perfectly. There was no logical reason why their signals should be delayed for such an extraordinary amount of time. They even tried sending test messages to nearby stations, but the result was the same: a massive lag in communication. The station's equipment was working just as it always had, yet their signals seemed to be caught in some sort of strange temporal loop. It wasn't until the technicians reviewed the data logs that the true extent of the anomaly became clear. They discovered that the radio signals, instead of traveling directly to their intended destination, had somehow circled the Earth twice. Yes, the signals had traveled around the globe, looping through space and time before they eventually reached their destination, causing a 2-hour delay that no one could explain. This was not just a glitch in the system. It was as if the very fabric of communication had unraveled, allowing the signals to take an unpredictable journey through the atmosphere. The engineers were left stunned. They were now dealing with something they had never encountered before: a time loop. The researchers, bewildered by the phenomenon, attempted to replicate the event, but to no avail. It wasn't something that could be easily recreated or understood. The glitch remained an isolated incident, something that could not be explained by their equipment, their understanding of radio waves, or any logical scientific theory they could come up with. It was as though the signal had slipped through a crack in time itself, briefly and inexplicably defying the laws of physics. As the team tried to make sense of what had happened, they began to consider the eerie possibility that this was more than just a simple technical malfunction. Could it be that they had experienced a brief, inexplicable moment in time, where reality itself had bent? Perhaps, they wondered, the radio waves had passed through some kind of electromagnetic anomaly, a disturbance in the Earth's magnetic field or an unknown atmospheric event that had altered the signal's path and delayed them in a way that defied all normal understanding. One of the more speculative theories offered by the researchers was that the glitch could have been caused by a time dilation effect. Could it be that the extreme environment of the South Pole, where time itself seemed to slow down under the crushing weight of the atmosphere and the isolation of the continent, had somehow played a part? Some even entertained the idea that the very location of the station, one of the most remote and inhospitable places on Earth, could somehow be influencing the flow of time, creating a momentary pocket of temporal disruption. It was as if the station, nestled at the bottom of the world, was outside the normal flow of time, causing the radio signals to behave in ways that seemed to break the boundaries of space and reality. Despite their best efforts, no concrete explanation ever emerged. The anomaly remained one of the greatest mysteries of the station's history. The engineers and scientists continued their research, but the strange event was always in the back of their minds. The signal delay, the looping radio waves, and the inexplicable passage of time had left them with more questions than answers. They had touched the edge of something extraordinary, a moment in which reality seemed to bend, and they had no way of knowing if they would ever encounter something like it again. In the years that followed, the Antarctic signal echo became a tale passed around quietly among the scientific community, a reminder that there are still many things in the world and in the universe that remain beyond human understanding. Perhaps, in the depths of the Earth's poles, where few have ventured and fewer still understand, time and space have their own rules, rules that even the most advanced technology cannot always predict. For a brief, unsettling moment, the researchers at the South Pole were left to wonder, had they experienced a glitch in time, or had they merely brushed up against a reality where the laws of physics didn't apply? As they moved forward with their work, the echo of that strange day remained, a reminder that in the frozen wilderness of Antarctica, there are forces at play that are beyond our comprehension, forces that can distort time itself. The Bermuda Triangle, the black hole of time. The Bermuda Triangle. Just the mention of its name evokes a sense of intrigue, mystery, and a chill down your spine. This stretch of ocean, roughly bounded by Miami, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico, has captivated the imagination of millions for centuries, fostering tales of vanishing ships, missing aircraft, and inexplicable phenomena. But there's one story, one event, that stands out among the countless bizarre disappearances, a chilling incident from the 1960s that left both investigators and the crew involved questioning the very nature of time itself. To understand the significance of this story, one must first appreciate the reputation the Bermuda Triangle has built over the years. This area, roughly 500,000 square miles of open ocean, has become synonymous with the unexplained. Ships and planes have gone missing, sometimes without a trace, as if the very fabric of reality itself had consumed them. But what sets the Bermuda Triangle apart from other mysterious places in the world is the eerie consistency of the strange occurrences. There are too many reports, too many anomalies, to simply write it all off as coincidence. In the 1960s, one naval ship, a vessel on a routine patrol, entered this notorious zone with no idea that it would soon become a part of one of the most perplexing anomalies ever documented. This particular ship was on a standard assignment, patrolling the Caribbean Sea, far from any landmass. The crew was familiar with the waters, having navigated these stretches many times before. Yet this time, something was different. As the ship sailed deeper into the Bermuda Triangle, it began to encounter an unnerving feeling of disorientation. At some point during the patrol, A routine communication was initiated with the ship's control center, a simple check-in. But when the communication team on land attempted to reach the ship again a few hours later, they were unable to make contact. The ship had simply disappeared from the radar. No signals, no response, no trace of its position. Authorities scrambled in a panic, launching search and rescue missions, but the ship was nowhere to be found. Hours passed, but there was still no sign of the missing vessel. Then, as mysteriously as it had vanished, the ship reappeared. The crew, now returning to the same waters they had sailed just hours before, reported the same disorientation that had plagued them earlier. But this time, it was much worse. The crew members were confused, disbelieving, and unsure of what had just happened. They had been missing for over 5 hours, yet they felt as if only moments had passed. To them, it was as though they had blinked, and suddenly they were back in familiar waters, just a few miles from where they had been. They couldn't account for the lost time, nor could they explain how they had managed to end up in the exact spot they had departed from. When the ship's officers conducted a thorough examination of the vessel, everything seemed normal. The ship had not drifted in any unusual direction, nor had it encountered any significant storms or other obstacles. Yet, when the crew looked at their clocks and navigation equipment, they saw the chilling truth. 5 hours had slipped away, unaccounted for. The ship had been missing for an entire period of time, with no logical explanation for its disappearance. The mystery of the missing time left the crew feeling as if they had slipped through a crack in reality. Some crew members spoke of a strange, almost surreal sensation during the missing hours, a feeling as if they were floating, suspended between 2 points in time. Others reported strange flashes of light, odd sounds on the ship's radio, and a general sense that something was off. It was as though they had traveled into another dimension, one where time wasn't quite what they understood it to be. The investigation that followed only deepened the mystery. Naval experts and scientists attempted to explain what had happened, but none of the theories they proposed could fully account for the bizarre incident. Some speculated that the ship had simply experienced some kind of temporary malfunction with its navigation systems, leading to confusion and the apparent loss of time. Others suggested the possibility of unusual weather conditions, such as a magnetic anomaly, affecting the ship's equipment. But none of these explanations could account for the crew's subjective experience, the feeling that time had simply jumped ahead, leaving them stranded in an altered state of reality. As the story began to circulate, investigators speculated that the Bermuda Triangle may harbor forces beyond our understanding, forces that somehow distort or disrupt the passage of time itself. Theories ranged from the possibility of a massive, underwater vortex to the presence of a time-warping black hole hidden deep beneath the waves. Some even suggested that the area contained anomalies in the Earth's magnetic fields that could create localized time loops, trapping objects and people in periods of time that are out of sync with the rest of the world. The ship's experience of losing 5 hours seemed to fit neatly into this theory, as if the vessel had briefly passed through a pocket in time, skipping ahead without even realizing it. But what truly made the incident so chilling was the sense of confusion that lingered. Time itself, something that should have been fixed, immutable, and reliable, had been fractured. The crew had been lost not just in space, but in time. It was as though they had been caught in a rift, a tear in the fabric of reality where the ordinary rules didn't apply. the very essence of their existence, anchored in time and space, had been challenged. For them, the Bermuda Triangle had become more than just a geographic location. It had become a place where the laws of physics and time itself had broken down. Since that incident, many other reports have surfaced, telling of similar strange occurrences in the Bermuda Triangle. Ships that vanish and then reappear hours or even days later, their crews confused, disoriented, and unsure of the time that has passed. Planes that encounter mysterious turbulence, only to emerge from it in a different time or place than where they started. All of these stories seem to point toward one unsettling conclusion. There is something in the Bermuda Triangle, an unknown force or energy, that bends, distorts, and alters time. Some have even speculated that the Bermuda Triangle is a kind of time portal, where moments in time can slip through the cracks, causing travelers to experience moments of lost or skipped time. Whether it's due to magnetic anomalies, shifts in the Earth's geomagnetic fields, or some other force, the Bermuda Triangle remains an enigma, a place where the rules of reality are no longer certain, and time itself can be warped beyond recognition. The crew of the naval ship, forever altered by their strange experience, left the Bermuda Triangle with more questions than answers. They had crossed a threshold into a space where time didn't behave as they knew it, a place where the passage of time could be reversed, altered, or lost altogether. And as for the Bermuda Triangle itself, it continues to be a place of endless mystery, where the very nature of time is an unpredictable force, and where reality itself can slip away in an instant. 4. The cuckoo clocks of the Scottish Highlands. Nestled among the jagged peaks and windswept moors of the Scottish Highlands, there lies a quiet village where time itself seems to behave oddly, as if the rules of reality are not quite the same as in the rest of the world. The people who call this remote place home are no strangers to the unusual. They've lived in the shadow of ancient stone circles, brooding castles, and forgotten myths for centuries. But for some, what has become a strange, almost whimsical mystery is something much more unsettling, an inexplicable phenomenon where time itself appears to freeze for exactly 13 minutes every few days, precisely at 2:17 p.m. The story begins in 2015, when a handful of residents from the village of Glengarry, a small and isolated settlement in the heart of the Highlands, started to notice something peculiar happening with their clocks. At first, it was subtle. A few people would remark, half-jokingly, that their watches seemed to stop at precisely 2:17 p.m. Must be a faulty battery. They'd laugh, brushing it off as nothing more than a minor malfunction. But as the days passed, more and more residents began to experience the same issue. Digital clocks, analog clocks, even wristwatches, they all stopped at exactly the same time, as if some unseen force had pressed pause on their lives for exactly 13 minutes, without warning or explanation. The first few incidents were chalked up to coincidence, but soon it became clear that this wasn't just a random glitch. It was a pattern. Every few days, like clockwork, at precisely 2:17 p.m., the clocks would stop, and the village would fall silent for exactly 13 minutes. It didn't matter what kind of clock it was, whether it was an old-fashioned grandfather clock in a family's living room, a digital alarm clock by the bedside, or the state-of-the-art timepiece on a commuter's wrist. The results were always the same: frozen hands, halted numbers, and a stillness that stretched through the village as the world seemed to momentarily grind to a halt. At first, The residents were bewildered. They were used to the unusual weather patterns and local superstitions that accompanied life in the highlands. But this was different. It wasn't just strange. It felt like a quiet disturbance in the very fabric of their daily lives. People began to grow uneasy. What was causing this? Was it some sort of electromagnetic anomaly in the area? A glitch in the matrix, as some jokingly called it? Or was it something far deeper, an inexplicable twist in the nature of time itself? As the occurrences continued, it wasn't long before the story reached the ears of researchers from Edinburgh University. A team of scientists, intrigued by the mysterious phenomenon, made the long trek to Glengarry to investigate. They arrived equipped with sophisticated instruments, eager to uncover the cause behind the village's peculiar time glitch. The researchers quickly noticed the same pattern the locals had been experiencing. Every few days, the clocks would stop at precisely 2:17 p.m., and they would remain frozen for exactly 13 minutes. What was truly baffling, however, was that this wasn't just a localized event. The clocks across the entire village, and sometimes even in neighboring villages, seemed to be affected at the same time. The team's best theories included the possibility of a localized magnetic anomaly, perhaps some kind of underground electrical disturbance in the region. They even entertained the notion that a subtle distortion in the Earth's gravitational field could be affecting the passage of time in this particular spot. However, after extensive testing and analysis, they were forced to concede that none of their conventional explanations could fully account for the bizarre phenomenon. The data they collected only deepened the mystery, with no conclusive answers to be found. At a loss, the researchers turned to a more radical hypothesis. Could the village be situated in a region where time itself was being warped? Perhaps the area was caught in some kind of micro-time loop, an anomaly where the laws of time as we understand them no longer applied. Could the village, hidden among the peaks and valleys of the highlands, be existing in a subtle tear in the fabric of space and time, where hours and minutes moved in a different rhythm? Some even speculated that it could be a form of time dilation, where time in the village was passing more slowly than the rest of the world. Whatever the cause, the phenomenon seemed to defy everything that modern science had to offer. But the locals of Glengarry weren't as concerned with the scientific explanations. They had lived with this peculiar glitch for years, and for them, it had become a part of life. To them, it was just another quirk of the land, something they had grown accustomed to, like the mist that rolled in from the moors, or the way the weather could change in an instant. They accepted it with a kind of resigned indifference, as if time itself had decided to move to its own, slower beat in this corner of the world. The clocks would stop at 2:17 p.m. The village would fall silent, and then, after exactly 13 minutes, everything would resume as if nothing had happened. Interestingly, some of the older residents even claimed that the glitch was not new. They recalled hearing stories from their grandparents about similar occurrences stretching back for generations. It seemed that this strange disruption of time had always been a part of the village's history, tucked into the folklore of the highlands. Some elders spoke of the cuckoo clocks, a term they used to describe the phenomenon, as if time had a mind of its own and chose to play tricks on the inhabitants. Some villagers, in fact, embraced the glitch as a kind of local charm. They would often smile and shrug whenever someone new came to the village and asked about the strange occurrences. It was They would say, just the way things were in Glengarry. Nothing to worry about. Time, they believed, had its own rhythm here. As the years went by, the mystery of the cuckoo clocks of the Scottish Highlands remained unsolved, a strange anomaly that scientists could not explain, and that the locals simply accepted as part of their everyday reality. The village continued on, as it always had, with the clocks stopping at 2:17 p.m. every few days, without fail, for exactly 13 minutes. The researchers, though baffled, eventually left the village, no closer to understanding the cause of the glitch. But the residents, unfazed, continued with their quiet lives, secure in the knowledge that the land itself had a way of keeping time that was all its own. Some people continued to visit the village, drawn by the mystery, trying to catch a glimpse of this odd phenomenon. But for the people of Glengarry, it remains just another oddity of life in the Highlands. And though the clocks may stop, the village continues, untouched by the rush of the outside world, a place where time itself seems to pause, if only for a brief moment, in a world that moves at its own pace. 5. The time freeze of Lake Vostok, Antarctica. The enigma beneath the ice. Deep in the heart of Antarctica, where the winds howl and the temperatures drop to unimaginable lows, lies a frozen secret, one that has captured the fascination of scientists and explorers for decades. Lake Vostok, buried beneath more than 2 miles of thick, unyielding ice, is one of the most isolated and mysterious places on Earth. This ancient body of water, sealed off from the outside world for millions of years, has been a subject of great intrigue. What lies beneath the ice? Could it be a thriving ecosystem, untouched by time? Or perhaps is it something far stranger, a place where the normal rules of time and space simply do not apply? Lake Vostok's allure began long before 2018, when a team of Russian scientists embarked on a daring expedition to drill through the thick ice that had kept the lake in complete isolation for eons. The lake, located in one of the most inhospitable places on Earth, had remained untouched by the outside world for so long that it was considered a time capsule, a window into the distant past, sealed off from all human interference. For years, scientists speculated about what they might find: ancient microbial life, unusual mineral deposits, or perhaps even the remnants of creatures that had been preserved in the ice. But nothing could have prepared them for what they would uncover, or for the mysterious glitches that would follow. In 2018, as the team drilled into the thick ice sheet above the lake, they began to notice something peculiar. It was a subtle, yet unsettling anomaly that seemed to occur with increasing frequency. Their equipment, sophisticated devices designed to measure time and temperature, began to malfunction in strange and erratic ways. Clocks would suddenly stop, then start again, only to jump forward several minutes or hours. Time-sensitive instruments, calibrated with extreme precision, began to behave erratically, as though they were experiencing brief moments of stasis, or even pauses in time. At first, the researchers thought it was a malfunction of the equipment. After all, they were working in one of the harshest environments on Earth, surrounded by freezing temperatures, magnetic anomalies, and extreme atmospheric conditions. It seemed reasonable to assume that the strange behavior of their instruments could be attributed to these factors. But as the glitches continued, they began to realize that something far stranger might be happening. The instruments weren't just malfunctioning. They were showing signs of time being manipulated in ways that defied explanation. The clocks would freeze at random intervals, ticking forward a few moments before freezing again. Time itself seemed to pause, as though it were caught in a loop. The researchers were baffled. They checked and recalibrated their instruments, but the problem persisted. It wasn't just one device that was malfunctioning. It was several, all showing the same strange pattern. And it wasn't limited to one specific location or depth. The glitches seemed to happen at random, no matter where they drilled. The deeper they went into the ice, the more pronounced the anomalies became. Time seemed to slip through their fingers, as though it were no longer linear or dependable. Some of the scientists began to wonder, could the ice itself be affecting the passage of time? Could it be that Lake Vostok, isolated from the rest of the world for millions of years, harbored some ancient force, an energy or phenomenon, that influenced the flow of time? As they pored over the data, they speculated that the lake's unique environment, sealed off from the outside world, might be somehow distorting the perception of time. Some even theorized that the lake, deep beneath the ice, could be a kind of time anomaly, a place where the natural laws of physics and time itself were bent or altered by forces unknown. The idea that time could be warped in such a remote and isolated environment was difficult for many of the researchers to accept. But as the glitches continued to occur, some began to entertain the possibility that Lake Vostok might be harboring something far more profound than just microbial life. Could the lake itself be a place where the normal passage of time was altered, or perhaps even suspended? The thought that an ancient, isolated environment could affect time in such a way was as terrifying as it was fascinating. What if the deep, ancient ice was more than just a barrier to life? What if it were, in some inexplicable way, connected to the very nature of time itself? The research team, unable to explain the phenomenon with any certainty, was forced to leave the site temporarily to conduct further investigations. Despite their best efforts, no clear answers were forthcoming. The glitches in the timekeeping devices persisted, continuing to confound even the most experienced scientists. Some even suggested that the anomalies could be caused by a kind of time dilation, a phenomenon where the passage of time is altered due to the intense gravitational fields of the Earth. But this explanation seemed inadequate, as it didn't account for the bizarre, seemingly random pauses in time that the team had experienced. In the years since, the enigma of Lake Vostok's time glitches has continued to intrigue both scientists and conspiracy theorists alike. The idea that a body of water, sealed off from the world for millions of years, could somehow affect the very passage of time remains an unsettling mystery. Could the lake be a kind of time capsule, preserving not only ancient life, but also an anomaly that alters the fabric of reality itself? Or could there be some deeper connection between the ice and the very laws of physics that govern the universe? The glitch in the timekeeping devices, an event that was so strange and inexplicable, has remained unsolved to this day. Researchers have speculated that the lake might be connected to unknown phenomena, whether it be ancient magnetic fields, strange gravitational forces, or something even more elusive. Perhaps the environment surrounding Lake Vostok is more than just a natural anomaly. Perhaps it is a gateway to something far beyond our understanding, a place where time, space, and reality intersect in ways that our current science cannot yet explain. The mystery of the time freeze at Lake Vostok continues to haunt the researchers who experienced it, and it remains one of the most perplexing and chilling mysteries in the world of science. The deeper the scientists go, the more they uncover about the lake's hidden secrets. But one thing is clear. Lake Vostok is a place where time itself is no longer certain. And as the ice continues to conceal the lake's depths, we are left with a haunting question. What other anomalies, both physical and temporal, lie buried beneath the ice, waiting to be discovered? 6. The Enchanted Desert of Namibia. A day that never ends. In the heart of Namibia's vast, barren expanse lies one of the world's most mysterious and haunting landscapes, the Namib Desert. A place so old, so untouched by human hands, that its shifting dunes seem to echo with the secrets of ancient civilizations. The desert, with its towering dunes and vast, seemingly endless stretches of sand, is a land of extremes. Here, the heat can be suffocating during the day, and the cold can be biting during the night. It is a place where time feels almost irrelevant, an ancient, unyielding environment that holds the weight of millennia in its grains of sand. In 2010, a team of archaeologists set out to explore the desert's famed petrified forests, the remains of trees that had been frozen in time for millions of years. They had planned their journey meticulously, eager to uncover artifacts that could offer new insights into the history of this otherworldly region. The group, seasoned explorers used to the harsh conditions of remote deserts, made camp on the edge of the Namib Desert, ready to begin their work the following day. But that night, as the stars twinkled overhead and the desert winds whispered across the dunes, something strange began to happen. The group had planned to wake up early the next morning to make the most of the limited daylight. They set their alarms, preparing for a long day of excavation and discovery. As dawn approached, they were already packed and ready to go. But when they awoke, something was off. The sky, though dark, should have been showing signs of morning light, the first faint glimmers of dawn creeping over the horizon. But it didn't. The sky remained as it had been the entire night, a pitch-black canvas with no sign of the sun. At first, they thought it was simply a weather anomaly. Perhaps a storm had rolled in overnight, blocking out the sun. But as hours passed, their confusion deepened. The sun never rose. The clocks, both on their phones and watches, all indicated it was still 4:30 a.m., and no matter how much time passed, the time on their devices never changed. The temperature remained steady, neither warming up in the expected morning heat nor cooling down with the setting of the sun. The group sat in silence, staring at their devices and the surrounding landscape. The desert, silent as always, seemed unchanged. There were no new patterns in the dunes, no noticeable movement in the air, and no shift in the surroundings. It felt as though they were stuck in a single moment, as though the world around them had become frozen in time. Hours passed, the sun still did not rise. It wasn't just the lack of dawn that unsettled them, but the fact that their perception of time seemed completely warped. As the hours dragged on, they began to check their phones, their watches, and even the stars overhead to gauge the passing of time. But no matter what they did, time seemed to stand still. The watches and clocks remained locked on 4:30 a.m. Even their phones, which had once been reliable in the most remote of places, gave no answer. It was as if the very fabric of time had fractured in this remote corner of the earth. The group began to grow anxious, unsure of how to proceed. They had planned to make their way to the petrified forest early in the morning, but it seemed impossible now. No one dared to sleep again, lest they wake to find themselves stuck in this strange time loop indefinitely. The atmosphere was tense, filled with a sense of unease as the team members exchanged worried glances. The desert, once so familiar to them, now felt like an alien world, a place where the natural laws they had taken for granted were no longer in effect. As the hours continued to stretch on, the team had no choice but to accept the unsettling reality. They had lost an entire day. The world around them was simply not moving forward, and with each passing moment, they felt as if they were sinking deeper into some strange, timeless void. The desert, which had always been a symbol of the passage of time with its shifting sands, now seemed to mock their attempts to make sense of it. The sun refused to rise, and time itself was stuck in place. It wasn't until the next evening that things began to return to some semblance of normality. Slowly, the clocks on their devices began to tick forward again. The sun finally crept over the horizon, casting long shadows on the dunes. The group, exhausted and disoriented, could hardly believe their eyes. The day they had lost, the day that had never ended, had finally slipped into the past. But the loss of that 24-hour period was more than just a practical inconvenience. It was a deeply unsettling experience that none of them could easily shake. What had happened in those hours? Where had the day gone? The researchers, still confused and uneasy, returned to their work, but the strange feeling lingered. Some of the team members began to suggest that the desert was somehow enchanted, that it held mystical properties that could alter time in some way. Others, more scientifically inclined, suggested that the anomaly might have been caused by some unknown environmental factor, perhaps a magnetic disturbance or a natural feature in the desert that interfered with their timekeeping devices. But despite their best efforts, no explanation seemed to fit. The team left the Namib Desert with more questions than answers. While they were able to continue their archaeological work, the experience of losing an entire day in such an isolated place never left them. The desert, with its endless dunes and unyielding silence, had shown them a side of reality they hadn't even known existed, a place where time could be bent, interrupted, or perhaps even frozen entirely. Local legends of the Namib Desert speak of the ancient forces that lie beneath its sands, mystical energies, said to be linked to the Earth's primordial past, that still pulse deep beneath the surface. Some believe that the desert itself holds the power to manipulate time, and that those who venture too far into its heart might experience strange disruptions in the passage of time. Whether these stories are rooted in truth or merely a product of the desert's haunting beauty is something the travelers may never know. For the group of archaeologists who experienced the time glitch, the Namib Desert remains a place of mystery and awe, a place where the normal flow of time simply doesn't apply. And though they continue to search for answers, they know one thing for sure. In the heart of the Namib Desert, time may not always behave the way we expect it to. Some days may seem to stretch on forever, and others may vanish entirely, lost in the shifting sands of an ancient, enigmatic land. 7. The vanishing village of the Italian Alps. In the misty, majestic peaks of the Italian Alps, hidden from the eyes of the modern world, there lies a strange phenomenon that has left locals and explorers alike scratching their heads in confusion. A village, once forgotten by time, seems to appear and disappear without any warning, vanishing into the mountains as though it were never there at all. The most well-known and documented occurrence of this strange glitch took place in 1998, when a group of hikers ventured into the remote, untouched wilderness near the village of Crisolo, a tiny settlement nestled in the shadow of the Alps. What they experienced that day would haunt them forever and leave many wondering whether they had encountered some kind of temporal anomaly, a fracture in time itself. Crisolo was a village lost to the world, its crumbling buildings and overgrown streets a silent testament to the passage of time. Though it once thrived as a small alpine community, it had been abandoned for decades, and the only traces of its existence were faded memories and forgotten maps. The hikers, drawn by a shared love for the mysteries of the Alps, had heard stories of the village's eerie reputation, but had never given much thought to the legends. They were more focused on the challenge of navigating the rugged mountain terrain, unaware that their journey would soon become a test of their very perception of reality. They had planned to hike through the alpine meadows and explore the hidden beauty of the mountains, but after hours of trekking, they stumbled upon something completely unexpected: the village of Crisolo. It wasn't on any modern map, and the hikers had not planned to visit it. But there it was, lying before them in the distance, as though it had materialized from the mountain mist itself. The sight was both eerie and captivating. Broken, abandoned homes with roofs caving in, rusted street lamps leaning crookedly in the overgrown grass, and ancient cobblestone streets that had long since been abandoned by anyone except the winds of time. The village appeared to be frozen in a long-forgotten moment, preserved in a strange and unsettling stillness. The hikers walked through the ghostly settlement, taking photographs of the decaying buildings and wondering how such a place could have remained hidden for so long. The weather was mild, and the sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across the village. As they wandered through the narrow streets, it was almost as if the village were alive with memories, its history lingering in the air like a ghost that refused to leave. But when they turned to leave, something strange happened. The village seemed to disappear, not gradually, but abruptly, as if the very essence of the place had been sucked away by some invisible force. One moment, they were standing in the midst of the abandoned village, and the next, there was nothing. No houses, no streets, no sign of the settlement that had just been there. The ground they had walked on was empty, with nothing but the surrounding wilderness to greet them. Their footsteps left no trace in the dust. It was as though the village had never existed at all. The hikers were stunned, their minds struggling to make sense of what they had just experienced. They checked their watches, their phones, and their GPS devices, but all of them were malfunctioning. The time on their devices was wrong. The GPS showed nothing but a blank void, and their compasses spun wildly as though they had been thrown off course by some invisible force. The hikers looked around in confusion, realizing that they had no idea where they were or how to get back to the path they had come from. The mountain, which had seemed so familiar just moments before, now felt alien and disorienting, as if the rules of reality had been altered in an instant. They struggled to navigate the terrain, but with no way to orient themselves, they only seemed to go in circles. The mountain's vastness stretched out before them, an unending wilderness that seemed to have swallowed up the village and their sense of time along with it. Hours passed, though it felt as if only moments had gone by. Despite their growing fear, they pressed on, desperate to escape the strange and unnerving pull of the Alps. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the hikers stumbled back onto a well-worn path, one they recognized from earlier in their journey. They were shaken, disoriented, and confused, but they had finally found their way out of the mountain's grip. Their GPS devices were still malfunctioning, and their watches, which had once been accurate, now showed times that made no sense. The time they had spent wandering the mountain felt impossible to account for. They had entered Crisolo in the late afternoon, but now the sun was setting, and the world around them seemed to have changed without them. When they finally returned to civilization and were able to compare notes with each other, it became clear that they had lost more than just the village of Crisolo. They had lost an entire period of time, a full stretch of hours that seemed to vanish from the world around them. The hikers, unable to reconcile what had happened, reported their experience to local authorities, who were equally baffled. The village had reappeared later, as though nothing had happened, with no sign of the strange time distortion the hikers had experienced. Some local historians suggested that Crisolo, like other forgotten alpine villages, might be caught in a temporal anomaly, a place where time behaves differently from the world outside. They speculated that the village could exist in a sort of time loop, where moments are lost and the natural flow of time is disrupted. Others believed that the area might be the site of some kind of magnetic disturbance or unexplained atmospheric condition that affects the passage of time. Whatever the explanation, the experience of the hikers left everyone involved wondering whether Crisolo was more than just a ghost town. Perhaps it was a place caught between moments, where time itself becomes a fleeting illusion. The mystery of the vanishing village of the Italian Alps has since become a part of local folklore, a tale told by those who live in the shadow of the mountains. Some claim that the village still appears and disappears, caught in a cycle of time that no one can explain. Others believe that the mountains themselves hold secrets older than recorded history, ancient forces that lie hidden beneath the surface, waiting to reveal their mysteries to those who dare to venture too close. For the hikers, the memory of Crisolo and the time they lost will never fade. They left the Alps with more questions than answers, forever changed by their brush with a place where the rules of time seemed to break down. The village may have disappeared from the mountain once more, but the mystery of the vanishing village of the Italian Alps remains, a haunting enigma waiting for the next curious traveler to stumble upon it.